Okay, so hello friends. Let me show you my face here, and as I say hello, hi. I am here with my Friday freebie, my Facebook Friday freebie, live at 5. I did get all that out, that's good. I am so happy to be here today and to talk to you about my my drawing hacks. I guess for those of you who are social media people, you've heard that term hack, and it's basically just a workaround for trying to take something and make an easy workaround for it, or an easy recreation of it. So my goal for today, my goal for today is to show you a couple of ways to get around this idea that you can't draw and so you can't paint. I just don't agree. I just feel like if you want to paint, you can do it. And it's never too late to start. I'm living proof of that. So if you feel as if your inability to draw has been an inhibitor to your ability to paint, I am here for you today. And if you've been painting for a while and feel like your drawing frequently is not what you would like it to be, some of what I'm going to show today might be of help to you as well. I can't presume to know what your background is in terms of drawing. Not many of us, though, went to art school. Not many of us have had the fundamentals of drawing taught to us. I wish I could sort of dial back the clock and have taken advantage of the art classes that may have been part of any curriculum. Hi, Ruth Ann. I would have loved to have been, willing to maybe defy my parents' wishes for me. And of course, they were very oriented toward college prep, everything, and electives were just a waste of time. You needed to get an education and get a job and support yourself and your family. And those are all really great aspirational goals, but they didn't leave a lot of room for just having fun in school. And art to me it's a total source of joy and fun. And I like to keep it that way. And sometimes drawing is not why I'm taking on a project, and I want to shortcut the drawing process. And so let me show you a couple of tricks that might help you too. And they're not hard. In fact, Birgit, could I ask you to bring me that turkey tub with a piece of plexi and some lights inside of it on that shelf and that counter? Birgit is here. She is my Gal Friday today, and she's going to help me with this demonstration. I forgot to get one thing together. So basically, I want to show you these drawing workarounds, and Bob has said, let's see, what have you said to me, Bob? That you've always been glad that you found photography. Well, lucky you. You found it a little bit earlier than I did. Let me just show it as it is. There is a tool. Oops, here it is. It's a very high-tech tool. Can you tell? It comes in a turkey pan, and I'll show you this on the tabletop here. This is my my poor man's Lightbox. This is a turkey pan from Costco. I think I bought a bunch of these at Costco. And was there a piece of plexiglass on top of it?
There was not.
Wasn't there?
There is.
Okay. I can just describe it. Oh, there's that, I guess. The smaller piece would be great. Yeah, that's how it is. Okay, so you can see that what this is comprised of is a fluorescent light, or 2 or 3. These are little closet lights that you can put inside your turkey pan. And then this is just a piece of plexiglass that you can slide over the top of it. I don't know if you can see this plexi, but this can be the equivalent of a professional light box. Now, honestly, I think that in the end, with three of these closet lights and a piece of plexiglass and the turkey pans, you might probably spend the equivalent of what you would spend on a real light box. I had this set up because when I had students, I needed to have multiple light boxes, so I would have multiple turkey pans and plexiglass setups going on at the same time, and so we could all trace at the same time. But you at home might have some of these items in your stash of things, maybe in the attic or wherever, and this can be the equivalent of a light box setup. So I wanted to just show you that. I'll move it out of the way. And, oh, jeez. Thank you.
You done with it?
Yep, I'll sweat. A light box comes in many sizes. This is a little compact unit. And then I have a larger one here on the table that I can illuminate so that you can see. And it can backlight a photograph or a copy, even from your copy machine. I think the copy machine copies actually illuminate more readily than a photograph might because the paper is thinner. These light boxes really are wonderful little workarounds for shortcutting the need to actually do a drawing. And the way that I use the light box is to put a copy that of something that I might want to create a drawing of. And if I want to make a drawing of that item, I can place a piece of tracing paper or vellum over the top of it, and I can then create a sketch that would live permanently on this piece of vellum. What's so great about that is that you can have this drawing then that you create, and you can have it at your fingertips should you want to do a painting more than once. And when you're first starting out, I know my feeling used to be that I would do this drawing, I would slave over this drawing, and I would then say to myself, oh gosh, I have worked so hard on this drawing. I would just tighten up and think, now I'm going to screw it up by painting it. And I mean, I really would get so precious about the drawing after having spent hours on this thing that then I would really just tighten up so much that I would just panic over the idea of putting paint to the drawing that I had worked so hard on. So what I have found, and what I did even back when I first was starting, is I would trace my drawing, and in doing so, I would give myself mental permission to screw up. And it's not that I'm a negative person, but I think I'm enough of a perfectionist that it would, knowing that I had that backup drawing, would give me permission to take risks. And honestly, as an artist, we have to learn to be comfortable with taking risks, especially in watercolor, maybe especially in watercolor, because watercolor is just so unpredictable sometimes, and it doesn't always go the way you think it's going to go. And that's kind of part of the beauty of it, is sometimes the spontaneity can get you results that you just could never have planned for, and that's a good thing. And so I've always said that watercolor is great therapy for perfectionists because it forces us to come to to grips with our issues and move past them and conquer them. So hello, Beth from Greenville. Thanks for checking in. And Sandy, so nice to have you here with us from Ontario too. Isn't that cool that we're able to just join together from all over? I love Facebook Lives for just that reason. Okay, so what about this tracing business? What about using a Lightbox as a means of tracing? So let me show you my tabletop one more time. Once you get your sheet of vellum on top of your photograph, if you don't have a Lightbox, if you don't have a turkey pan with a closet light and a piece of plexiglass, what you can do is you can put this whole setup on a bright window and it will perform the same way. It'll do just the same thing. What I would absolutely suggest that you do is tape down your photograph or whatever it is you're trying to trace. And then in addition, I would tape down, and I like to use this blue painter tape because it's just not as grippy. It tends to release a little bit more readily without tearing the paper when you're finished. But I like to create this dual setup where not only is the photograph set in place, but my tracing paper is also set in place so that I can lift this up, check my drawing to make sure I've traced everything I want to trace, and still be capable of setting it down in the same orientation. It will move. Trust me. Every time I've tried to do this without taping things down, I've regretted it. So just hear me when I say you want to tape things in place, and you want to tape them such that you can lift this top sheet as if it's hinged from one side. So what I do when I'm tracing onto the vellum like this is I like to make a strong mark. And so I'm going to try to use a pencil that has some soft lead. Now you may or may not know this, but the pencil numbers tell you the softness of their lead. This one is actually an 8B. I think if you use anything from a 2B to a 4B to a 6B to an 8B, you'll be making a nice strong mark. I would not use an HB pencil. That stands for a harder lead, and it releases less graphite. But what you want is a nice strong drawing for this tracing paper, because conceivably you're going to be using it again to transfer that drawing to your watercolor paper. So this creates a permanent drawing for yourself when and where you might trace. And what you'll do then is you'll have this that you can file away and you can refer to in the future. So this drawing can then become something that allows you to feel as if you can recreate this drawing again in the future without wasting the effort that you might put into creating this tracing. Now, this is a nice step to take, to have it on the vellum, to have it available as a reference drawing. But it's also possible to skip this step in watercolor and take this photograph and trace it directly onto your watercolor paper. Now this is not quite as obvious, and it takes a little bit darker room sometimes to make this drawing or to make this image show clearly through the thicker watercolor paper. So sometimes it's easier to take and make a mark on the vellum and trace from the vellum, because the vellum is more transparent and it just shows up more dramatically through the watercolor paper. So you could skip this vellum step and go straight from a photograph to the paper, but sometimes it's a little less obvious where the lines might be. And this step also affords you that permanent reference drawing that it might come in handy should you want to try a painting again. And I always encourage people to do a painting more than once, because I feel as if that first time is you're kind of working things out, but the second and third time you've kind of building on what worked before, and having this drawing that is in your files can be a really wonderful way to kind of loosen yourself up. Now, let's say you wanted to take and use a painting. You can take a painting that you've already done and create something similar using a Lightbox. This is a painting that I did of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this is, if I were to go around this, I could easily recreate this and not really have to think about it, just knowing that my lines are kind of where they need to be. And the feature, see, I'm doing the very thing I told you not to do, which is to try to trace without taping. Don't do that. You want this to be in place and solid. First, I'm going to tape the painting. Then I'm going to tape the tracing paper on top of it, otherwise referred to as vellum. Now I'm not going to have to worry about whether or not this is going to be something that will move. One suggestion I would make to you when you're tracing in terms of how to draw, some lines might need to be stronger than others, and others might need to be just suggestions of a line. And I've always considered drawings notes to myself. And I think if you sort of give yourself permission to think of this as a shorthand to yourself, you can use a drawing and a tracing to sort of tell yourself information that you might have forgotten later on. A lot of times when I do a hairline, I'll make a broken line. I'll just sort of try to find the contours, but not necessarily draw a solid hairline, because hairlines are often, a little bit random. They're not necessarily a solid line. Bits go out, bits go in. And so having that broken line is sort of a reminder to myself to keep the quality of the line that I put in there as I trace it to the watercolor paper a little bit broken. Also, too, some areas of a painting or a photograph might be really bright. And so sometimes what I will do on those areas that are really bright is I will put a little X or something. X marks the spot perhaps of what might need to be extra lit. Like, for example, this little cheek highlight, I might put a little dashed line around it, and then I might put a little X there to just remind myself that that is going to be a very brightly, strongly lit area. Similarly, I might make a little dashed mark around this very strongly lit area on the nose and put a little X as a mark to myself to remind myself that that is going to be left light. This is done because in watercolor, if we're going to capture the light, we have to be willing to paint around an area. So this is sort of something that I do just as a reminder to self to just avoid painting in that area. And then before I start painting, if I'm getting in the vicinity of one of my little X's, I'll take my eraser out and I'll make sure that I've erased it before I go in with water, because water will sometimes set that graphite mark in a way that wouldn't necessarily be to your advantage. Claudine, is this game changing for you? I'm so happy to hear that. What is it that is news to you? Um, I will tell you that it's a dirty little secret amongst portrait artists that they trace. Um, they might not want to tell you that that's what they do, but it's allowed. It's allowed. And as far as I'm concerned, there's artistic ways to create tracings as well. I like to think about coming in here and just sort of making an interpretive mark as I'm tracing, and then where I'm done with this and I take it up off of the surface, sometimes what I'll then do is compare it to the actual drawing that I did, or to the actual photograph, and then I'll make even more little interesting marks with my pencil to make it seem less of a tracing and perhaps more of an actual drawing. I think you can think about creating shading in a drawing as an underpainting for watercolor, but finding these contours can sometimes just really take you halfway toward capturing a likeness, because it's very subtle things, especially in portraiture, that really tell you about who that person is. And likeness is a real challenge sometimes to capture if you don't get it exactly right, because little things mean a lot when it comes to painting a person. So this is the Lightbox setup that I would highly recommend. This is absolutely allowable. It's not cheating. It's just a technique, and technique is really, I think, why I would recommend that anybody study with an instructor. I mean, none of this is rocket science. You can go out there and you can gather this information one way or another. Lots of people would be willing to show you this. But I think when and where you're coming to art later in life, which a lot of us are, and I cannot recommend it enough. I will tell you that I think that an art practice, a creative practice, is just a wonderful addition to your life at any age. And who of us has any time to waste? I mean, we're none of us getting younger. And if you want to make progress quickly, I would absolutely suggest that you find a teacher and just study with them and try to have them help you learn some of their tips and tricks that make life easier and might make your progress faster. Along those lines, first of all, I want to just back up and say, if you've got any questions about any of this, please put them in the comments. I'm seeing your comments. Betsy, you use a clear acrylic clipboard with a strong LED light behind it. That's another way to play this. Cheryl Garcia says she loves her Lightbox, and I'm happy to share with you. I hope that this is of help to you. I'm glad to have you with me today. Any other questions on this, please feel free to put them up there in the comments, and I'll be happy to address them. I will say that I have an announcement to make that I'm excited about. It is that you can access more of my Friday freebies. I'm not muted now. Paige is wondering if I'm muted now. Do I sound muted now? So I hope that you can hear me. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Or a thumbs down if you can't, maybe? I can hear you. You can hear me? Okay, good. Well, Paige, I think you should be able to hear me. So maybe you've muted me. Maybe. She is my daughter, so she may have practice at not listening to what I have to say. Just teasing. You know I love you. Okay, good. I'm glad you can hear me. So, okay, I was in the middle of my announcement. Facebook, the Facebook freebie thing, I would like to start doing more frequently. Oh gosh, I just cannot get away from all these alliterations. Okay, I'm going to be offering these Facebook freebies on my new group. And so if you would like to be a part of my new Facebook group where I'm going to be offering regular tips and tricks, and it'll be hopefully a resource for you to share tips and tricks as well with like-minded people who are interested in painting. And it's called Watercolor Fun and Free. My group is open now to your entry into it, and once you're there, I'll be happy to welcome you into my little community of students, and hopefully share even more as the weeks and months and maybe years go on. That would be nice to think about. Oh yes. Okay, let's talk about carbon paper. I am hearing what you're asking out there, and Birgit is here helping me hear it. And let's back up. I'll take you to my table. After or during this broadcast, you could think about going to my page, Rebecca Z Artist, and you can click join the group of Watercolor Fun and Free. And it's going to be just that. We're going to try to keep it fun, and I'm going to try to have some great free offerings there for you to hopefully help you develop your art practice in maybe fundamental ways that will help you whether or not you're my student. So let's back up. I'm going to show you about carbon paper, because that's another way to do tracing, but not just any carbon paper, and let's talk about that. Okay, so carbon paper is another way to create a tracing. And this is a piece that is a well-used piece. It's got lots of lines on it, as you can see, but you can use this stuff over and over. There's two sides to it. One has graphite and one does not. And the way you use this stuff is that you place the graphite side down on whatever surface you would like to trace. So let's say I wanted to trace onto, I'm going to turn this light off. Let's say you wanted to trace onto a piece of paper. You could do this on a piece of watercolor paper, or you could do it on a piece of vellum like I've got here. What it takes is a copy of some sort or a photograph of some sort, and it has to be something, though, that you feel comfortable writing on. And I would suggest that if you're going to use carbon paper like this, that you would use a pen, and maybe even a colored pen. One of the things that this can help you do is remember what you've traced and what you haven't traced. So, similar to what I would have you do before, you would tape down your piece of paper first that you might want to create a transfer onto. On top of that, you would place your carbon paper. Now, this is wax-free carbon paper, and that's important for a watercolor artist to make sure that whatever you're using is wax-free, because if it's not wax-free, it will end up imparting a line of wax that is impressed into the paper, and if you're doing a transfer onto your watercolor paper, it will cause a resist. Wax and water do not like one another. They resist one another. And so you want to make sure that you use the wax-free sort. So if you wanted to, you could literally create a transfer right onto a piece of paper that you would then watercolor, or you could try to create a transfer again to a piece of vellum that you might be able to use over and over again. So this is a little bit different setup. You have to put whatever piece of paper is going to receive the transfer down first and tape it. On top of that, you have to put your wax-free transfer paper. And then that wax-free transfer paper has to have the graphite. It comes in different colors. It comes in white, it comes in yellow, and it comes in the gray graphite. I just generally use the gray graphite. And that graphite side has to face down, okay? So then I tape that into place so everything's not going to be slipping and sliding around. Then from there, I place my image on top. Sometimes I'll have to sort of sort that out underneath a little bit. Sometimes the Lightbox can help with that. But basically you put it on top here, and then you have to tape that so that everything is in place and is not going to be moving around, because in this kind of transfer you really need to keep track of where you've been and how it's going. So you have to have this hinge capacity in place, okay? And those tapes really allow for you to check. So one of the things I like to do with this sort of style is to use a pen, as I said, and I like to really press hard.
Bob Younger has a question. Is carbon paper the same as Cerol wax-free transfer tracing?
Yes, carbon paper and wax-free Cerol graphite transfer paper are the same. Okay? I'm just using that term carbon paper, which is sort of a generic term, but the Cerol graphite transfer paper is the brand. So I like to use this pen to let me know that in a strong way I know where I've been. And it also helps me to kind of double check the mark that might be being left behind. This is kind of a blind way to create a drawing, and honestly it ends up creating probably my least favorite style of drawing. It tends to be less expressive. It tends to be a little bit more static and I don't know, just more rudimentary in its feeling. So I guess what I would suggest to you, if you use this as your transfer method, I would suggest that you try to create a drawing that you would then transfer. It's really not showing up very well on the parchment. Let me put it up here so that you can see it a little bit more clearly. I would just know that if you're doing this, that it's going to create a little bit more rudimentary drawing, and maybe be prepared to do some touch-ups to that drawing before you would actually paint it. I don't know. I just feel like this is sort of an impossible way to go about it, because you're not really seeing what kind of mark you're making until you lift it up. And then there it is in graphite, and because it's in graphite, it should be amenable to being erased and lightened. But it's not a very subtle line, okay? It's just not. all in all, every time I trace a drawing, I really do like to have a gummy eraser around. This is a kneaded eraser. And I like to kind of dial back my drawings a little bit quite frequently if I've traced them. And I'll do that by just rubbing my gummy eraser, my kneaded eraser, over that drawing and just dialing it back a little bit. Not every line needs to be really strong. And so where the lines might get away with being a little bit less pronounced, sometimes my traced drawings really benefit from a little bit of erasure before we get started. So anyway, that is what I would say about graphite transfer paper. Make sure that it's wax-free. Make sure that you tape everything down. And make sure that before you get started painting, that you consider doing a little bit of erasure in a gentle way with this kneaded eraser, which shouldn't leave a lot of debris, and it should also not damage your paper, because a lot of times watercolor paper is quite easily damaged, and it gets affected by things like an eraser. So, any other questions? You guys are loaded with good questions today and good comments, and I appreciate that. Well, if you don't have any more questions, then that's probably it for in terms of information that I have for you today. I hope that you'll think about joining my Watercolor Fun and Free group. It is brand new, and you'd be one of the ground floor members if you decide to be part of it. And I hope you will. I look forward to coming back with you on Fridays at 5. You can sort of look for me to be here. And hopefully I'll come here armed with little goodies for you that might be of use and might be informational. And Claudine, game-changing. I like that. I'd love to think that your game could be upped through your association with me. That's always my goal, to help you along. And let's see, I've got one comment here. It seems pencil or tracing is okay to leave even after painting. I'm not sure I understand that question, Bob. I do think that I'm wondering if maybe what you mean is it okay for the drawing to show through when you paint it? And if that is your question, I would say yes, absolutely. I think I like to see the hand of the artist in the painting. Not always is that helpful, but there's moments when I think that seeing the pencil line can be an addition to the painting. It also can be kind of cool in some instances when you see that the painting actually departs from the drawing slightly, and that can happen too. You get in there and you realize, I don't know if I want to honor that line. I might just make a new contour for whatever shape you're involved in, and so that can be kind of an interesting thing too, where you see the artist has sort of departed even from the shape. Okay, so yes, Bob, you're saying yes, and I'm thinking that maybe I hopefully answered your question there, so that's great. You're so welcome for all of this. I hope it is helpful to you, and I hope you'll meet me again on a future Friday. Always fun to be on Facebook with a freebie on Friday. How many more F words can I come up with for this? But we will be seeing you soon. I hope you have a good week till next week, and take care. Happy painting. Bye, everybody.